Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his servant. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the gift from Allah and from his servant in this time of suffering and pain. I greet you all in peace. We say in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum, and Ramadan Mubarak. You are watching us live at Open Signal. It should be on the link, but I don't see it on the link yet. But it's on Channel 11, Comcast. And I'm going to try to get the video to post it on YouTube and other social media. You are watching Northwest Stance. We was called before Ghetto Rise Media. Our objective is to continue to strive towards self-improvement and developing our God-given gifts and potential. I always want to thank Portland Open Signal for allowing this program to be so consistent on their airways. And I want to thank Brother Daniels for coming to help us to keep this program going for our people. I now see it on the link, so very good. Thank you. Our topic for the day would be 7 deadly sins and its consequences. And then our the subtitle, I should say, of this talk today is forgiving self. Forgiving self. Okay, so 7 deadly sins and its consequences, and forgiving self. So first, let us enumerate these 7 deadly sins. They are fear, they are pride, they are vanity, they are lust, grief, envy, and anger. These 7, in the scriptures, it talk about the 7 deadly sins, but also from another angle, it talk about these seven ways into divine or into heaven. So really, that number 7, what we're going to talk about today, it's a deep spiritual science that gets into the history of nations and the history of people's behaviors and so forth, even the present behaviors of people. These 7 deadly sins, they weaken or they damage. They weaken or they damage our hearing, and I want to put another word to that. They weaken or they damage our hearing, which is comprehension. They weaken or they damage our heart, which is righteous inclination. Okay? They weaken or they damage our sight, which is sharpness of observation. So all of these 7, when we learn how to see it in self, that the Holy Quran tells us that our striving will be seen, and that those of us who have sins, we will attempt the uphill road. But many of us forget, myself included, that struggle is ordained. There is no other way. And we are made to overcome struggle. There's a scriptural verse about Jesus where it says that even though he were a son, yet listen to this, even though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. By the things which he suffered. So, we, a lot of times, we don't know how to be patient with self. And we have it in the Holy Quran where it tells us, by the time men are in loss, except those who believe and do good and who are patient. The Holy Quran says that we should seek patience we should seek assistance, through patience and prayer. So the 7 deadly sins, okay? Forgiving self after knowledge is a requirement. The 7 deadly sins are low desires. Okay, low desires is what this world is built upon. When you look at their movie industry, when you look at the kind of music that people listen to today, and I can recall a time where we had what is called conscious hip hop, and it elevated our thinking and our actions and so forth. But now they have maneuvered that in such a way that people who listen to the music that's coming out now, if it's from, the wicked music industry, it's all about low desires. And now you have a new kind of media coming into existence that is challenging the wicked media of the enemy of God. And when we say wicked media, we don't just mean, we mean the whole gamut. We mean the mainstream media, which we call on purpose white stream media. And the reason why it's white stream media, because, those who are Chinese or those Negro talking heads and, those Mexican cats and so forth, they are just imps of them. So it is white stream media, And when you have black media that follow in their footsteps, well, that's their imps that have not been taught the knowledge of self and fear this open enemy. And that's why we're going to talk about today all of these 7 deadly sins. Because this enemy got a lot of us scared, man. Scared. It is fear, it is pride, it is vanity, it is lust, greed, envy, and anger. So again, the Holy Quran talks about our low desires. Okay? And it asks this very pointed and serious question in the Holy Quran, in the 45th chapter, the 23rd ayat or verse. It reads, quote, "Have you seen him who takes his desires for his God, and Allah leaves him in error knowingly, seals his hearing and his heart, and puts a covering on his sight." Remember what we said earlier about what it damages: the hearing being comprehension, the heart being righteous inclination, and the sight being sharpness of observation. And all of this can be healed, though. You see, we don't want to go through a subject like this without making it seem like it's all doom and gloom. No, this is being talked about throughout the scriptures because it can all be healed. Okay, so continuing in this ayat, in this Quranic scripture, it says, "Who can then guide him after Allah? Will you not be mindful? Who can then guide him after Allah? Will you not be mindful?" So we're going to define some words now, and these words, the reason why we define words a lot, because I recall just from my memory from reading in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's book, Our Savior Has Arrived, where he said, some of you say that we use too much definition. Then he answered and said, "But do you understand without definition?" And that's just clear. That's just clear. So mindfulness means a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. Being mindful like that, it's not just sitting down and trying to think. It's also getting your physical health together so that your blood, which is the life force of your body, which is made up from the food you eat, when your blood is clean from eating properly and from being detoxed from all kind of environmental disruptions and so forth, then when you sit down and strive to be mindful, that definition gives us more of a push toward being truly mindful. So again, mindful means a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. Okay, so a mental discipline as opposed to a physical discipline is what being mindful is. And let us remember, a lot of us like to study and so forth, but a lot of us like to read, but we don't actually know how to get the comprehension that we should, so we are just reading without really grasping to benefit ourselves. And all of us have been in that condition and still are in that same kind of mind frame, because we have to grow on that Jacob's ladder, so to speak. We have to grow in consciousness. So we are always trying our best to correct ourselves and use knowledge as a mirror for ourselves. Most definitely. So, mindfulness. Let us remember that the Holy Quran never says only believers mind. It never says that. Okay, Holy Quran says only this, only that a lot of times about many circumstances, but it never says only believers mind. It always says only men of understanding mind. Okay, And we should recognize, we should know by now in our maturity that don't just mean males. It means women too. Okay? It means women too. So, let us define now. Define with scriptural ayahs too. The 7 deadly sins. Fear. Fear. An unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. And I want to add a scriptural verse to this. In the Holy Quran, in chapter 6:48, it says, "And we did not send messengers, but as bearers of good news and warners. Then whoever believes and acts aright, they shall have no fear, nor shall they grieve." I want to use all of these 7 today, if we have time, to actually show how these 7 really makes us bow to some really unpleasant, immoral stuff in the society today. The word pride. A feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derives from one's own achievements, the achievement of those with whom one is closely associated, or from qualities or possessions that are widely admired. That's the meaning of pride. In the glorious Quran, in 26th chapter, the 63rd verse, it reads, "And the servants of the beneficent are they who walk on the earth in humility, and when the ignorant address them, they say peace." Unquote. And then also in the Holy Quran, the 71st chapter, the 7th verse, it reads, "And whenever I call to them that you may forgive them, they thrust their fingers in their ears and cover themselves with their garments, and persist in denial and are big with pride." Okay, that's pride. Now, next one is vanity. Vanity is something that many of our enemies in their artificial society of thinking have a lot of, but God is disgracing them today. Now, we're not saying that we are definitely saying that the white reality is our enemy. We have never said, okay, that every white individual is our enemy. We have never said that. You can find studies and lecture series and books written by Caucasians about how this world is satanic. Okay, so even if you don't want to accept that, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his prime student, Mr. Farrakhan, has been given us divine revelation, you can still see that many of the white scholars that are against the grain of this world, much of what they say tally with what we are striving to practice in life. Okay? Now, the word lust is a very strong sexual desire. In Surah 7 of the Holy Quran, it reads, "And we sent Lot when he said to his people, 'Do you commit foul deeds?' And no one in the world did before you. Surely you come to males with lust instead of females. Indeed, you are exceeding bounds." In the answer of his people, check this out. And the answer of his people was only that they said, "Turn them out of your town. Surely they are a people who aspire to purity." You see, this is why, God destroys the wicked, because when we try to be right and strive to speak the truth regardless of circumstances, then you get people who have some kind of control. They think they want to confine you, or they want to put you out their town, or they want to slander you and defame you and so forth, and they want to use their newspapers. How the ministers recent Savers Day divine message. Okay, we see now on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. These enemies. Oh man, trying to say that he's an anti-Semite, that he's been doing this for decades. He's the worst hater in the world and all this stuff. And it's clear what the minister said to the world. It's very clear what he said to the world. But these enemies are so caught up in their evil that they have made themselves think that their evil is right. Just like that saying, is it a saying or a phrase? It says that truth is stranger than fiction. Man, we have that today. It is more alive today than it was in the historical Jesus time. It is more alive today than it was in the historical time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, Ibn Abdullah of Arabia. These people are wicked, more wicked than all of them put together. You know, they even, you know, there was a, what was that called? Well, it was a report about the school system and curriculum, and then they actually showed some videos where people's children, black and white children, they have little I guess you call them recesses or library times for children, and these people have the nerve when the parents of these children are not around to have drag queens come in, man, and sing to their children and dance to their children, and then have little conversation, circle talks or whatever and stuff, and then you know they tell the children, if you young man or boy, if you feel like a girl, that's all right. This is all on video. These are real enemies, okay? But their time of doing that is up now. And this is why we are seeing so much confusion in the society and destruction of the society. You know, it's over for them. Over for them. Now, there's one more, two more. Greed. Of course we know about greed. In this dog-eat-dog world, you know, where you can well, you can finance a car, and then before you get done paying for it, you paying $12,000-$13,000 more. You know, that's wickedness. That's not just doing business. Put that right, man. That's why people don't finance or don't go to rent to own furniture. We buy it outright. You know, we better get smart and start doing that more. Buy it outright. Wait till you get the money, because you don't want to help these enemies to rob you, you know, and that is what greed is in this wicked society, in this wicked, immoral society. Greed is intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. And where we are here, and the Holy Quran reads in chapter 2, verse 188. It reads, "And do not swallow up." Listen to this, man. "And do not swallow up your property among yourselves by false means, nor seek to gain access thereby to the judges." Hey, man, these enemies have been so wicked that they have corrupted judges. So all the judges are in on usury too. They end on they end on that mess and so forth. You know, and the scriptures already talk about, you know, how deep the evil goes and what Allah himself is doing about it. So again, it says, "Nor seek to gain access thereby to the judges." Man, have they done that? "So that you may swallow up a part of the property of other people wrongfully while you know." While you know. Okay? Now the word envy. Now envy is a deep one, man, because I still have them, but I still study them. I still try to go over it and see more out of it. But there was an article series written by Brother Jibril Muhammad, who is a scriptural scientist and one of the confidants and friends of the minister, and was also taught and trained, you know, by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Exalted Christ. Okay, he has a series of articles about envy. You know, very important study for us to actually see, so that we can actually see the people around us, how they need to, and how they should be seen, but then see ourselves too. Okay, envy. A feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. Now, these verses I'm about to read, these ayats from the glorious Quran, man, I love these ayats because these ayats really explain well the hearts of some cats, and Allah already know them. Allah already know them, and these verses particularly refer to human beings that are at point in the judgment time, guiding us to safety. Okay, and those human beings are Master Fard Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the minister, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Okay, these verses particularly, and then in this time that we live in, where the minister is this persona, that everybody just cannot escape. Okay, then he is getting the bulk of the behavior in these verses. Now listen about envy. Now listen. In Surah 40, ayat verse 35, it reads, listen to this, quote, those who dispute concerning Allah's messages without any authority having come to them, greatly hated is it by Allah and by those who believe. Thus does Allah seal every heart of a proud, insolent one, unquote. Now another verse is in chapter 40, ayat verse 56. It reads, those who dispute about Allah's messages without any authority having come to them, there is not in their heart but a desire to become great, which they will never attain. So seek refuge in Allah. Surely He is the hearing, the seeing. You see, it tells us, okay, Allah knows them, but you don't worry about it. It says, seek refuge in Allah. Surely He is the hearing and the seeing. Okay, have you ever? This is another way to explain that karma is real, and every deed carries a consequence, except for Allah's mercy. So again, we are not trying to explain and talk about this like it's doom and gloom, except for Allah's mercy. And remember, in Islam particularly, we are taught and we are shown through Allah's attributes, which is the attributes of nature, the powers of creation, that the attribute that overpowers and has more significance than any other attribute is mercy. It's mercy. And then another one is anger. Anger is a strong feeling of annoyance, pleasure, or hostility. Now I want to use one of these. Let me see. Vanity, lust, greed. Maybe pride. So we have heard of what is called, quote unquote, critical race theory, where now there are governors and there are some areas of the country where they are trying to stop what is called critical race theory. And that term critical race theory, it has good meaning, but that word, it could be termed a little bit different. But just for the sake of this argument here, I want to explain what that is. So critical race theory is a way of thinking about America's history through the lens of racism. Scholars developed it during the 1970s and 1980s in response to what they viewed as a lack of racial progress following the civil rights movement of the 1960s. So there is the governor in Florida, and then is some officials, politicians in New York and other places that's trying to stop certain things about black people from being taught in schools because they think that it will actually create a mind of reverse racism and make white folks feel guilty. They are writing articles about this now, and they are trying to stop certain. They are trying to control the curriculum even more. Isn't this why? Now this is 2023 that we're talking about. Isn't this why we need our own school? We should educate our own, and we will have our own school. Matter of fact, the enemy's system of educating is now destroyed. They are dumbing down the American people. They gave a analysis of the different countries and the achievements of the students. The American students is way down the ladder on achievements. This is real. Okay, so this is where this is a lot of vanity and pride that the enemy just do not want to deal with. You know, they still in this modern time, they thinking that truth, if it make them feel guilty, you shouldn't teach it, you shouldn't say it, and so forth. You know, it is your problem if you feel guilty from truth. That's you, and you can actually deal with that, you know, by God's grace if you want to, but it's really your problem if you feel guilty by truth. Now, talking about education, and we're going to talk about also reparations, because, you know, in San Francisco, you know, they proposed, but it's a lot to it though, but they proposed to give every qualified black adult $5 million for reparation. That's a lot to talk about, because it's not only about cash and the slickness of even proposing that. It's a lot to say about that. But first, though, let's deal more with education. Okay, I want to read from the minister's book. Those of us who don't have this book, you should get it. He explained. This book is called Torchlight for America. It was written in 1993, and it's relevant today. But America is out of time when it comes to certain things. But I just want to remind us about how important how eloquently the minister, you know, tried to help America's educational system. Most definitely. So, I'm reading from page 47, The Purpose of Education. He writes, let's deal with what education is supposed to be as opposed to what it is. In America, one of the things that separates man from beast is knowledge. Knowledge feeds the development of the human being so that the person can grow and evolve into divine and become one with the Creator. It is not one's maleness or femaleness, being black or being white. Rather, it is our growth and reflection of knowledge that distinguishes us from the lower forms of life. Education is supposed to be the proper cultivation of the gifts and talents of the individual through the acquisition of knowledge. Knowledge satisfies our natural thirst for gaining that which will make us one with our Maker. So true education cultivates the person, mind, body, and spirit by bringing us closer to fulfilling our purpose for being, which is to reflect Allah God. The second purpose for education after self-cultivation is to teach us how to give proper service to self, family, community, nation, and to the world. He continues, the problem in today's education is that the root motivation is the acquisition of wealth and material rather than cultivation of the human spirit. In a study conducted by Dr. Harold Stevenson, professor of psychology in Michigan, in which he compared American schools to those in East Asia, the different levels of education of American youth were traced to the forces promoted by America's culture. In response to a wish question, Chicago children tended to wish for money and material objects, while Belgian children wish for educational goals. You see? And also, the minister continues about this on page 41. He says, if America believes in pluralism, a new system of education must be developed that gives all human beings their proper due. The current study of American history is nothing more than an indoctrination of Americans in the idea of white supremacy and black inferiority. At best, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, listen to this, man. We are in such a hostile society that when I read this, you're going to know exactly what the minister talking about. He says, at best, blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans learn how to use wit and skill to maneuver in a hostile environment. But they are not taught how to create new circumstances that make freedom, equality, and justice, life, liberty, and happiness realities instead of just words on a piece of paper. The fundamental philosophies of this civilization are rooted in white supremacy. You can't bring a black child into that kind of education environment and produce a child who loves and respects itself. You produce a child who bows down to white people and looks at white people as God. I'm not saying it's wrong to respect other human beings, but it's totally inappropriate to worship other human beings who is no better than yourself as though they are a God besides Allah. If whites parent themselves after God, then we could follow them, but they have done quite the contrary. Quite the contrary. Okay? So we should get that book. The Torchlight for America. As we see the closing of this world. You know? Because it's closing down and closing down quick. Most definitely. Closing down quick. You can't even watch the news today without seeing some silly caricatures trying to explain the news and so forth. They like cartoons today, man. You know, they like cartoons, and they know they being replaced now. Real talk. Okay, so 7 deadly sins and its consequences and forgiving self. Okay, so we already explained all of these 7. Now, let's get into the forgiveness or the mercy part of it. These 7 deadly sins are guarded. Sins are to be guarded against and overcome. The Holy Quran reads in the 76th surah or chapter, they fulfill vows and fear a day, the evil of which is widespread. That's today. Unquote. Fulfill vows means a solemn or earnest pledge or promise binding the person to perform a specific act or behave in a certain way. Fulfilling a vow is regulating our lives. The greatest discipline is that discipline that we impose on self. Seeking refuge is an act to develop and maintain discipline. Seeking refuge is an act to develop and maintain discipline. To be disciplined from what? Or to continue in what? Check out this ayah or verse from Glorious Quran. It reads in the 113th chapter. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of the dawn from the evil of that which he has created and from the evil of intense darkness when it comes. Not if it comes, when it comes. Okay? That's where we're at right now. And from the evil of those who cast evil suggestions and firm resolutions, and from the evil of the envier when he envies. What is that? What are those firm resolutions? You know, when you get people who justify being a transsexual, who justify what you call those folks that man, you know, what do you call it? They have their own little clubs to where they dress like women. Drag stuff, you know. You get human beings that actually know how to talk about that and justify it, like, you know, ain't none of us, you know, don't judge me, and so forth. That's, you know, and that's the big word that these people use. Even those who get caught up in being alcoholics or get caught up in adultery and stuff like that, and just can't help themselves and so forth. They formulate an artificial thinking, deceiving themselves because they want to feel better at being so lewd in their life. But again, though, there is a wisdom that can help us all to get over and overcome our defect. That is what Islam is about. You know, as we are taught, Islam comes after everything else failed. When we say Islam, we are definitely not talking about, you know, an Arab culture. We are not talking about the Johnny-come-lately Caucasian Arabs, you know, that really hate black people and so forth. We are not talking about, you know, learning how to dress like a Middle Eastern or a Iranian or something like that. We're not talking about it. Understand that Islam means peace through submission to God, and that's a simple term. But then, you know, getting deeper into that, we have to really understand revelation, the judgment of this world, and then learn how to study, to develop, to bring out our defects that allow us to actually work on our defects. Okay, all of us. So there's no such thing as a person pointed out, yeah, man, you shouldn't eat pork, man, and then the other one saying, man, don't judge me. There's really no such thing as that. Wrong is wrong and right is right. We are not, none of us should be trying to talk in a way that we can make a person do things. But as the Bible says, as steel sharpens steel, man sharpen man. And that goes for women too. Okay, so through just the right kind of conversation and then our own study and so forth, we can actually learn why we have to speak the truth regardless of the circumstance, even against ourselves. Okay, now talking like this, why wouldn't that be welcomed among the homosexual? Why wouldn't that be welcomed among the alcoholic? Why wouldn't that be welcomed among those in the economic sector that they actually rob the poor and so forth? Why wouldn't that kind of talk be welcomed among them? Because they know that karma is real. The consequence of doing things are real and so forth. Why would it is not welcomed among them? Because of their hard heart, and they have to work on that, most definitely. Now, in talking about, I really wanted to get to reparations, but I wanted to really, man, I got something that's a little bit more significant about the word ignorance, because when it comes to the 7 deadly sins, we have to realize that being ignorant of the effect of them and that we are caught up in them, there's ways to understand that. Many of us, or probably a few, whatever, have not gleaned yet that there are different forms of ignorances. Some that are forgiven, some that are not forgiven, some that is really something to be pondered over. Okay, so ignorance in its forms makes us victims to the 7 deadly sins. Ignorance is the want of knowledge. Want means ought, should, or need to do something. Ought, should, or need to do something. So there are like 4 or 5 kinds of ignorances. Usually, these kind of terms are used in a court of law, but they can also be used in our daily lives also. Okay, so voluntary ignorance, and these are some good definitions, man. Voluntary ignorance refers to unaware states that result from the neglect to take reasonable steps. From the neglect to take reasonable steps to acquire an important knowledge. This arises when a party might by taking reasonable pain have acquired the knowledge but neglected the same. That's voluntary ignorance. Okay, you voluntarily didn't do what you needed to do to actually learn what you needed to learn. Okay, that's voluntary ignorance. Now there's another one. It's called involuntary ignorance. This refers to unaware state. Wait a minute. This refers to that which does not proceed from choice, which cannot be overcome by the use of any means of knowledge known to him and within his power, as if the ignorance of a law that has not yet been put in the books. Okay, but it's still a law, but we just don't know about it yet. So that's involuntary ignorance. Now another one is culpable ignorance. Culpable ignorance. Check this out. Typically, if the consequences of an unwitting act are foreseeable to a reasonable extent, and one is culpable for one's ignorance about the unwitting act, then one is blameworthy to some degree for the consequence. This is why, when you get in trouble, you need a lawyer, because everything is a word. Everything is a word, and there's a why for everything, and we should want to learn the whys of things. Most definitely. So and the last one is willful ignorance. This is described as a situation in which a person will intentionally shield themselves from acknowledging information that might help them, that might make them liable in a civil or criminal case, even denying these facts to themselves. Okay? So, when we talk about, we are ignorant of this, that, and the other, it's not really an insult. Are you ignorant of that? That's not really an insult. But some of us are so removed from words, and our emotions is so tangled up and so forth, And I'm telling you, man, by study, we can see a lot of that in ourselves and just unwind it, unravel it over time. But that's only when we couple that with learning how to increase and improve our health. That's not just eating 5 or 6 meals of vegetables and be like, okay, I'm back. No, it's a science to it also. It's a science to it also, So, we are talking about the 7 deadly sins and its consequences, and we have added to that and forgiving self. Now, as you all know, first of all, we have a universal web information engine, 2 of them. Okay, we have a universal information engine websites, 2 of them. NOI.org, then finalcall.com, and then there's other ones. There's other websites also that's very good that are from students of the minister, students of Islam, that are very studied and helpful to us as we continue to grow into Islam. Okay, so I mentioned that because we have a study, as we all probably already know, a study course, a divinely guided study course, self-improvement, the basis for the development of our communities, which deals with self-correction and self-analysis. Self-correction and self-analysis. You see how we put it back on that? So we're not trying to judge people, but we know that those of us who are trying our best to look at the minister and the minister's teacher and be like, okay, I want to be a good believer. We are under a study for self-improvement, which deals with self-analysis and self-correction. We have to take this study up and see ourselves more and better, okay? Self-analysis, the analysis of oneself, in particular one's motives and character. Did you know also that improper, wrong food, will give you the kind of character that really is not your real nature? Did you know that? Okay? Self-correction is the process of correcting itself when things begin to go wrong without outside help. Very deep. Very deep. So, there's a lot, man, particularly, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, let me say this because white folks might like this. So I'm going to say it. He said, and this is, oh man, we should get all of his books and just study it. Even white folks, even Chinese, even the ethnic Russians and so forth. Hurry up and get them because time is running out. Anyway, he made the point that we have to make our communities decent and safe places to live. He was telling us that. Okay? So we are not, now, this is no excuse for the dirty enemy to develop bank redlining and gentrify our communities. Because if you were a friend of humanity, you would actually know how to, not know how, you know how, but you would actually use your skill to allow other people to have their own. But you want to steal homes, but you want to displace people, but you want to put in, what is that term? They made up a term. When they want to build up stuff, I forget the term, but the word domain is in it. Well, they can just say that word and show something they written down and say, yeah, we're going to knock this house down and this, that, and the other and so forth. You know, these are people that are they orchestrate their evil. It ain't just one, two, or three of them. You know, as the minister said years ago, he made the point that he said members of the same orchestra do not accidentally play the same tune. That's not by accident. You know, so when we were over in Northeast Portland, let us not blame ourselves only. Okay, because and matter of fact, it happened in Tacoma, in Seattle, happened in LA, happened in Harlem, all over the country. And so in that kind of unison with our open enemy, and then the kind of ignorance that we had to let that happen and so forth, well, the result of that will be their disgrace and destruction, and then us actually learn the value of having our own, and eventually having our own permanently. You know, when this thing is all over, whether the Caucasians like it or not, they will not be the majority in this country. The country will actually be, they will be respected, okay? But the country will actually be split up into the Native American, the black man and woman, and the Mexican. It's coming to that now, you know, and they see it, and so they trying to do all kind of things to stop the population of people who are not Caucasian from growing in the country. It's too late. You deserve to lose it, man. Hey, you know. So, look, if we forgive self, this can lessen the effects of what we are afflicted with because of our lack of knowledge or ignorance. We properly forgive self by atoning with self. Here's some very important points that, you know, the Day of Atonement was introduced to the world in a magnificent way at the historic 1995 Million Man March, when the minister actually spoke on atonement. He spoke on us atoning with God, with ourselves, and with each other. Now, this atonement is actually a spiritual science that if you have any problems with yourself or with others and you really want to solve it, you got to follow these steps, like it or not. The reason why there's so much chaos because people don't know about the steps, and that people think that they know what they don't know and don't want to hear about it. But anyway, though, let me tell you, the minister he pointed this out at the historic Million Man March. And then from that Million Man March, we had three other anniversary marches where this was further implanted in our people's consciousness and so forth. Now, let us begin to practice it because the time is getting late. Most definitely. So he said the atonement process. 1, point out the wrong. 2, acknowledgement of the wrong. 3, confess the fault. 4, repentance. A feeling of remorse, okay, or shame for the past conduct which was wrong and sinful. Atonement, meaning to make amends for the wrong. Forgiveness of self, to cease to harm self by continuing wanting to suffer in remorse. Cease to harm self by continuing to want to suffer in remorse, okay? Then after that, we have what is called you are reconciling. And you are restoring, okay? Meaning to find peace within. Then after all of that, this is what is called perfect union with Allah, which allows better friendship, better connections with others and so forth. Okay? Now, about ignorance and about forgiving self. Here's a verse from the glorious Quran that we should really ponder. It is in the 6th chapter, the 54th ayat. It reads, and when those who believe in our messages come to you, say, peace be on you. Your Lord has ordained mercy on himself. So if any one of you does evil in ignorance, then turns after that and acts aright, he is forgiving, merciful. See, that's deep. That's deep. Okay, I definitely would like to use this last 10 minutes on reparations. Okay, but let me read one more about forgiveness. In the second surah of the glorious Quran, the 74th verse, it reads, No, I read the one from the 16th chapter in the 119th verse. It reads, "And surely your Lord, for those who do evil in ignorance, then turn after that and make amends. Surely your Lord after that is forgiving and merciful." Okay, so we're done with that. Now, with reparations, okay, in that San Francisco article and so forth, you know, so what these enemies propose, you know, it says payment of $5 million to every eligible black adult, the elimination of personal debt and tax burdens. Look, man, they should be doing that for everybody, not just black people. Because look, the the debt and tax burdens and so forth, that's all theft. It's all theft. It's coming out now, and this is why we are really in what is called a debt jubilee. Because what is coming down now, when the bottom falls out, that debt gonna go anyway. It, it's not going to go any other way, because they are just a commercializing people. They don't want to admit that, oh man, yeah, we got to stop this because the bubble going to burst. Nah, they're going to let it burst and then still trying to be in front of the people. This is why Allah came himself, man, to sit down these kings and rulers, because they not going to it ain't gonna be a thing about them getting on CNN and say, yeah, we're gonna do this and do that for the people. They have what is called what the term is usury. Where, okay, if they loan, really in Islam, usury is a crime, and Allah hates usury. A person loan you $20, okay, they'll loan to you, but they want 30 back. Stuff like that. That's usury. That's wickedness. Okay, so when you get these people, where you go to, man, you go to rent a center, then you finance a car. I did that some years ago, and I never do that again. These people, something else, man. They are thieves. Even when you understand properly. Theft, even mortgage and rent is theft. If a person stayed in an apartment for 15, 20 years, isn't it just common sense that he or she, they pay for that apartment now? Isn't that just common sense? If you get a mortgage and so forth, and you end up paying for it probably 2 years before you die and so forth, man, that's usury. That's wickedness. Okay, and then look up the etymology of the word mortgage. Okay, you can trace the root. Allow my witness. You can trace the root of the word mortgage. The root of that word is death pledge, because they know how they get that set up. You're gonna die before you even enjoy what you paying for. So those who think they buy the home and they're just paying their mortgage, no, you paying rent too. You paying rent too, man. So okay, this article goes. Let me see. Guarantee annual incomes of at least $97,000 for 250 years in homes in California for just $1 a family. Okay, man. Okay, you see, it's going to be some kind of conversation about that around the whole country and stuff, right? And whether this enemy like it or not, I'll tell you this. The minister said one time that he was talking to his teacher about us doing for ourselves and us negotiating with white folks and so forth about getting land. And he made the point, I'm just paraphrasing, he made the point about, he told his teacher, yeah, we told them that you give us the land and we'll just go and knock everything down and build for ourselves. And then the minister said that, his teacher told him, no, you don't tell them that. When we want to have our own and they owe us and so forth, the homes there, this and that there, no, they move out, we move in, because that's fair. That's what they have today is ill gain. They not getting away with this. They not getting away with this, man. But our own interest and fear of them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, hey man, they are not to be feared. But when you have such a inferiority complex and so forth, they look at that, and those who are not every white individual, but those whites like that, when they actually see a Negro who's scared and so forth, and whatever, they like dogs. Those white folks. They like those kind of white folks. They like dogs. You ever saw a dog where it see a cat and stuff, and it don't want to react yet. So the dog would pounce his paws against the lawn or against the ground to make the cat see, because the dog want to see more fear, and then boom, the chase is on. Man, these people, bro. Okay, yeah, we got like I think we 58:30. I think no, we 6 minutes. Okay, so Allah willing, we're gonna do a part 2 to this next Friday. I think, and after next Friday, we're gonna try to schedule some other shows and so forth. But before we end, I wanna say something specifically that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said about about separation and reparations. This is how he explained it. Listen, this is how he explained it. In the Muslim program, what the Muslims want, number 4. Excuse me. He wrote, we want our people in America whose parents or grandparents coming from slavery to be allowed to establish a separate or a separate state or territory of their own, either on this continent or elsewhere. We believe that our former slave masters are obligated to provide such land, and that the area must be fertile and minerally rich. We believe that our former slave masters and their children, are obligated to maintain and supply our needs in this separate territory for the next 20 and 25 years until we're able to produce and supply our own needs. Since we cannot get along with peace with them, after giving them 400 years of our sweat and blood and receiving in return some of the worst treatment human beings have ever experienced, we believe our contribution to this land and the suffering forced upon us in this land by white America justifies our demand for complete separation in the state or territory of our own. Okay? And, as I said before, we are already separated now. Okay? We are. This is why they gentrify us and want us over here and so forth. This is why there are Russian communities and other communities, because we are already separated. Now we gotta just take over our own, and we gotta actually stop the enemy from interfering with us. Okay, there's a whole history of them practicing economic sabotage on things that we develop for ourselves and so forth, and we have given up, but not really. We are being primed, to forsake them altogether. Even the sellouts, okay? Even those who have been drawn out because they want a nice house and a nice car and so forth. You coming this way too. No doubt about it. So, the last point that I want to make is about this reparations and how they are trying to, well, in this article, it gives this point. Fewer than 50,000 blacks live in the city, and it's not clear how many would be eligible. Possible criteria include having lived in the city during certain time periods and descending from someone incarcerated for the failed war on drugs. Very interesting. I thank you all for listening. Please watch us again and again and tell others. Assalamu alaikum.